Hey everybody, I'm coming to you from my kitchen, and I also realized that I'm wearing the same shirt that I wore last week. So it's kind of funny, at least it is for me. I felt really incomplete last time with my last video on death and rebirth because it's such a large topic. And I think that I'm going to do a series on death and rebirth. I am going to do a series. So this is part two. And the first thing that I want to say is with death and rebirth, they don't have to be big and gnarly. They don't have to be, a death in the family or a divorce or, losing a loved one. They can be very normal things like graduating from high school or your first kiss. When a woman gets her period for the first time, that's a death and rebirth. And when she goes through menopause, that's a death and rebirth. And so there's a lot of what I would say like natural or normal deaths and rebirths, and they are on the spectrum, and they're everywhere. And so why are they everywhere? Well, death and rebirth is trying to teach us so many lessons, which is why we're going to do a series on this. And today we're going to talk about acceptance. And acceptance is I think it's one of the primary tenets that we are practicing. It's one of our primary divine attributes that we are practicing here on earth. It's one of the reasons we come here. If you remember when I do the directions, in part of my prayer, I talk about how there's no better place than here to practice things like compassion, love, forgiveness, and acceptance is one of those, because those tenets are what remind us of who we really are. They remind us of our divinity, and we have to come to a place that's a little bit gnarly to really practice that. For example, in order to practice, compassion, you got to have somebody to be compassionate about you. You got to have somebody that is accosting you, so you can have compassion towards them. And so, acceptance, big deal. And when it comes to death and rebirth, one of the things that it's teaching us to accept is that there are seasons in our lives, and in some cases, we can be fully on board with them, like graduating from high school, or in other cases, we are not fully on board with them, like having somebody betray us. Either way, there is something that is occurring that needs to go away, and there's something that needs to emerge. So one season transitioning into another season. And so we're learning to accept that. But then we're also learning to accept through this process of death and rebirth that, we may not know what is in our own best good, frankly, spiritually speaking. And I think that's probably a theme. I know it's been a theme for me in my walk. And so really accepting like, okay, even though I may not want this, or I would have crafted it a different way. If I was to write this script, the script would go differently, or whatever, however it is for us. But to just start to accept how things are happening and that they're happening for us. They're not happening against us. They're happening for our evolution. And so all of this acceptance in so many different forms is ultimately, I believe, leading us to accept reality. And that reality was here before we showed up on the scene. It will be here after we leave. New Age thought says that you can create your own reality. And frankly, that's bullshit. And I can tell you why, is because the ego would love to create its own reality. That would be crack for the ego. And so it believes that it can on some level. It also believes that it can get us back to our divine source, and it can't. And it can do neither. Can't create reality, can't get us back to our divine source. It's been trying for eons. So if we can't create our own reality, and you can at least try that on for a moment, I might be pushing some buttons right now, then what would that leave? Well, then we have to accept reality the way that it is. Well, there's that, but then also one of these parts of death and rebirth is that you can't be complacent. You have to meet life where it's at. Life, if you want to experience love, you have to get out there and be open enough to receive it and be courageous enough to give it, right? So there is no laying on the couch and allowing this to happen. So accepting reality the way that it is this big kind of surrender, if you will, and at the same time It's how do I want to be involved with it? So it's the masculine and feminine. How do I want to just allow this to come in and to be receptive for it and just be open and accept what it is? And how can I be active with it? How can I influence my experience by interfacing with it? So acceptance. And we might even do another one on acceptance next time because I can keep going. But hopefully you can apply some of what I'm saying to your current life. And until next time, I'm not sure what we'll talk about, maybe more of this. I hope you guys had a great weekend. See you later.